Hello everyone. I'm glad that you connected to our usual video conference. And for Ukrainian cities, it's very important to implement smart city solutions, for implement urban development ideas, etc., etc. And of course, with this experience, we can get from side of our colleagues abroad. Yeah. And today our guest is Tom van Arman. He is from Amsterdam. For me, it's a big honor to introduce him. He is architect and urban planner, founder and CEO of TAPP, Smart City Strategy of Amsterdam. Yeah, and Amsterdam for us sometime is like example, is like icon, yeah, of urban development, of smart city solutions. And we invited Tom. Tom past year was a participator of Smart City Forum, and it was very interesting presentation, very interesting discussion. And we ask again Tom to be our guest and answer for different questions, interest not only for Kyiv but for another Ukrainian cities. Yeah, because now we only on way of urban development, of implementation of modern solutions. Tom, tell us please what happening in Amsterdam today. Which project have become significant, etc.
That's a great question, Yuri. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Yeah, the last time we spoke was 6 months ago, and a year ago, kind of, yeah, the whole country went to lockdown. So there's been lots of radical transformations. I'm going to start my presentation, if that's okay. Yes, thank you. Thanks again, everybody from Kyiv. Greetings from Amsterdam. Like I was just saying, lots of transformations have been happening in the last year. And I moved here as a young architect and planner, and things changed really, really quickly. So Airbnb and Uber profoundly changed our city, and no doubt changed the city of Kiev. But I think what really happened last year was really even more dramatic, created whole new dilemmas for our cities. So we have these new kinds of split screen kind of new realities about working from home, working remotely, studying online. We're avoiding public transit. The transport system is in a crisis now. We're no longer flying to Abu Dhabi for our meetings anymore. We're all trying to figure out this new norm that we're in, which is keeping the distance, staying away from our grandparents. We're all of everything that we're doing now is no longer a restaurant. It's not socially based, but deliveries and contact-facing apps and all of these kinds of new dilemmas. And so one of the biggest dilemma that I've discovered in the last year is the choice between health or privacy. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm worried about, which is why today's topic is about responsible urban technologies that we're deploying now in our cities to make sure that it's not going to be violating any of our digital rights as citizens. So one of the first examples I'm going to give is where I work each and every day on the Innercity Living in future environments. And this is really kind of a sandbox for our city. It's along the waterfront. It's a very popular destination for a lot of Amsterdammers to cool off and recreate, especially during the summer. But as an architect and urban planner, what I really love about this this little square mile of this former Navy base, Marine base, is that you can look at it through lots of different kinds of lenses. And if you look at it, the urban planning side, you have these kinds of zones where you can start experimenting with brand new smart city technologies or whether the products or services in the kind of natural habitats of a public park, or maybe it's a waterfront recreation, or it's a campus business model, business park area. Maybe it's a sports related or health related or food and beverage related. There are different zones where you can test these things because it is private property. But once they work there, you can scale them and replicate them to other parts of the city. So living labs become so. The other things last month is just a digital twin of this environment. And let's see, yeah. So, oops. Just an example, you want to a living lab online, you can share that what's going on around people when they come visit, but also when they're online. And so we kind of made this three-dimensional model where we could actually just showcase some of the projects you're working on here. So water quality sensors, the underwater research for creating kind of natural habitats, new displays. We're testing out the autonomous boats now for the canals here. We are creating new VR experiences for the new event spaces that have been created thanks to Corona. We can't meet together anymore, but we can still meet virtually. And creating more workshops for children. One of the projects that I want to talk about now is, well, let me zoom back to this one. Signage to communicate to the guests and visitors of the Marineterrein what's going on here in terms of all these experiments and research projects that we're doing. We have a drone lab that we're testing out with the fire department and hospitals and post office. Working with the Marines on certain things. We're also using cameras not as surveillance technologies, but as insights for the city in terms of crowds and how crowded it's getting. We're sharing, publishing all that data in real time. Fitness is important. Health is important for the Marineterrein. We're capturing water through filtration systems. So in this like little microcosm, you have this wonderful laboratory to experiment with these new technologies. One of the ones I wanted to show you, of course, was the Future Fitness Garden, which is one of the projects I worked on together with the city of Amsterdam and my dear friend Marcus Funstein from Life Electronic. And what we've done is basically, let me go back to my presentation now. And basically what we're doing is using a simple camera device, not as, hello. Oh yeah, it's loading. I'll just talk over this little film. We're just using one single camera with an algorithm to basically detect people as they're working out. All the clubs, fitness studios are closed, of course, because of Corona, but also outdoors, recreation areas and gymnasiums are becoming super popular. But how do you make sure that people are still safe? And so we connected the algorithm to an LED strip. And the LED strips are kindly reminding the guests and the visitors of this fitness area, outdoor fitness garden, we call it, to maintain their distances, or if it's getting too crowded, it will turn red. So we're just trying to find these new urban interfaces to help guide the people working out to stay safe and stay healthy without having to police them and punish them with fines and everything like that. That's not what we want to do. Now, another project I wanted to work on to share with you. We're about to launch it. It's something brand new. This is together with the AMS Institute, who are leading this with the TU Delft, MIT, and Boston. And I'm helping facilitate this on location in this living lab, which is basically a concept that I think we can all relate to about privacy. We're all being monitored now. Everywhere we go, our public spaces are being are collecting data, and online on the internet, of course, there's cookies, right? So we understand the terms and conditions, and we enter that site online. Offline, in the built environment, in the urban surroundings, there are no cookies. We don't understand what data is being collected from us. And cameras, of course, are one of the most invasive technologies known to mankind. So what we're looking at here is how do we feel about these types of technologies as a society, but also what control do we have over those types of technologies? I think everybody has these days, especially during Corona, constant Zoom calls and meets and Microsoft Teams and all these meetings, but sometimes we have to turn that camera off because we don't want everybody looking all the time. And what we've done is created a kind of hopefully this works. Yeah. A kind of interface. There's three types of interfaces that we're trying out this summer with the crowds and the guests of the Marineterrein. And one is with an app. You can close the shutter where you're on the docks, you're on the waterfront, you're sunbathing. You don't want to be monitored. You can use the app to close it. You can use a timer. You can use the whammy bar button. So we're doing all sorts of experiments. Is it 1 minute? Is it 1 hour? Is it 1 day that we can turn these things off? Where are those moments of interaction where people feel most vulnerable and have control over them being censored and monitored? That's also a part of this whole responsibility discussion today, is about the privacy and the responsibility of when deploying these technologies, what control that people have over them. One of the things that we wanted to do also last year, and we're testing it out this year with cities, and hopefully Kiev or others listening might also be interested, is a kind of responsible sensing toolkit. So what we've come up with is a kind of cookbook for making sure that when your cities are transitioning or deploying lots of technologies, or your cities are transitioning to the digitalization, what are those things that can help us? Hold on, my thing is beeping here. What are those technologies that can? What are the steps that we can take to ensure that it's citizen it's privacy by design, so that when we're building the future cities and creating these new digitally enriched environments, that our rights are protected. So what we came up with is a 6-step approach to simplify. This isn't theoretical academic. This is really based on being on the front line and telling cities like Kiev, hey, when you're about to do these things, it's a landmine out there. And we're gonna help you discover where those mines are and help you navigate safely around them, so you don't make the mistakes of wasting too much time, wasting too much money, wasting too much energy, and more importantly, not harming or abusing the public space that we're infiltrating now. So just very quickly, I've just got a few minutes left because I really want to talk to you all, have a discussion. But this is the Responsible Toolkit. It's just cityxl.com. And what we're doing now is working with partners, the police, the other cities, to advise them on how, using these 6 steps, how to create a more ethical and responsible city that is fair, it's democratic, it's inclusive, it's public participatory by design. And so, for example, what you see here, I'm just going to talk about, this is step 3, for example, but these are the legal, technical, and spatial considerations you will need to consider when deploying these technologies. And there's lots of, we realize that no one reads anymore. We all just kind of look at infographics or watch videos. So we just made some diagrams that talk about the technical, spatial, legal considerations that you need to make. We're working with TAPP, who is this the advocates for digital rights, and we're applying those principles in our workshops. Stakeholders from Kiev projects teams will actually rank themselves: inclusivity, control, is it tailored to the people, is it open and transparent? And you have to have an honest gut check with yourselves. These are all the legal, at least the GDPR, the European guidelines for digital protections. So it's just a resource library for all of these things. These are some of the technologies that we're using in the city of Amsterdam. We're hoping to work with cities like Kiev and others to add more and more types of sensors and scanners that we're all developing and deploying in public spaces. But then you can rank them in terms of how invasive is this sensor versus how insightful is it. So you want to find that sweet spot between what is the most, what is the least invasive technology but creates the most insights. And the choice of those technologies, you can literally put on a little matrix like this. but also have a dishonest discussion about what kinds of data these devices or scanners or sensors or things are collecting. So just metadata like dates and times and location is probably okay. But then you start getting into contextual data like photos and videos and sound, and then you get into the personal spaces. Biometric data is still possible, and that's becoming more dangerous. Behavior, age, sex, cameras, and object detection and machine learning can detect all of these things now, and it becomes even more dangerous in public space. So how do we do that carefully? This is a story about the Marineterrein, and again, when you have a living lab, you can also check out what all those different types of permissions, agreements, registration, signage, privacy you'll need to conduct these types of research projects or experiments, urban experimentation. And then we just have a video, because again, like these days, if something breaks at home, you don't go to the instruction manual, you just go to YouTube to figure it out. And so we've talked to all the experts and authorities on this topic. And to conclude, so if you're interested, just go to cdxl.com. And just to conclude, this is my favorite, which is basically how do we transform architects and city planners into future entrepreneurs? Because a smart city is a booming industry right now. But more importantly, how do we transform those entrepreneurs into future architects and city planners? Because I think that we're about to fuse the built environments and the digital environments together. So we need those we need to talk to those new makers of future cities. And it's no longer just the engineers and architects and zoning administrations and urban designers. We're now talking with drone pilots, 3D printer operators, digital transparency advocates, what we're talking about today, AR and VR designers, which are creating these new realities online and offline, data curators, AI developers. I'm working with AI developers all the time to test. Social scientists, life cycle, the circular economy, making, wasting is now closed here in Amsterdam. We have this donut economy, which is we're not wasting anything. Storyteller, visual artists, communication is key. How do you explain it to an audience that don't know these terms or technologies? Supply chain engineers, share economy. How do we transform everything into a currency which is not money, but maybe based on water or kilograms or distances or square meters? IoT stewards, app developers, 3D scanners, LiDAR operators. These are all the new future city makers, and these are the people I work with every day to make create a more perfect future city. So if you're interested in checking out, if you want to do a scan of how responsible your technology is or your project is, please contact us at cdxl.com. And if you're one of those future city makers or entrepreneurs that want to help be part of that future city making movement, please contact me at tom@tapp.nl. And that's it. I'm going to go back to close my stop.
Thank you, Tom. The urban tech concept is new for Ukraine. First of all, is a lack of experience. Next is due to the difficulty to involve private investors in this process. And from your point of view, what needs are to be investigated first of all for determine which technologies to start with?
Yeah, start simple, start cheap, start lean. I think cities, at least here in the Netherlands, are becoming more familiar with the design thinking, the lean methodologies, the startup kind of attitudes about not spending months or years working on this project, but just days. What can we test as quick as possible? So if you have an idea, a concept, you can always break those ideas into parts and test each part of that thing in iterations. And what works, you keep, and what doesn't work, you kill. And you very quickly can move and guide your projects, guide your research, guide your urban technologies very fast, very cheap, and with some simple budgets and partnerships, private and public partnerships. So the cities will co-finance a piece of research. You can very, very quickly demonstrate value, not just for the city creating insights, but certainly for the citizens who these technologies should ultimately be helping.
Okay, thank you. You know, 5 years ago, when we started Kyiv Smart City initiative, we developed Kyiv Smart City Concept 2020. Yeah, and we investigated the opinion of citizens, more than 1,000. Yeah, and we defined 5 key areas. Yeah, for improving in using smart city solutions. Yeah, first it was e-governance, next transport, next medicine, next public safety, and public utility services, municipal utility services. And of course, we started the implementation of different projects in these areas. And we received, as a result, different services for citizens. And what about Amsterdam? What areas were emphasized by in Amsterdam? Can you please tell us?
Oh wow, yeah, that's the thing about smart cities, that it's such a new market or industry, and it's such a broad topic, because you just mentioned 5, but the areas that I'm working in are, you know, future mobility, smart energy, urban data. Of course, you're going to be talking about health and education and utilities infrastructures. On top of that, they all kind of go hand in hand. These kinds of topics and themes start bleeding in and out of each other as we start digitizing kinds of things. But what the city of Amsterdam is certainly trying to do is find that sweet spot between economic growth and innovation, and obviously solutions. So from the people side, from the environmental planet side, and also the profit side, that we're exploring how to create a kind of ecosystem where we can be solving problems, we can be making businesses, and ultimately creating a more informed city.
Okay, thank you. What is the role of Innercity Living Lab in urban development?
Yeah, I think that's does Kiev have a living lab, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, our concept was, and you know, we investigated experience of Amsterdam first of all, yeah, and we gave experience, yeah, and our idea was to build city as a platform, yeah, as living lab for testing different solutions, yeah. And first of all, of course, we was focused on basically on technological solutions, yeah, and it was idea to improve and to increase quantity of technological solutions in the city, and second, to support our startuppers, yeah.
Yes,
and for example, if startuppers has idea, we were provided, for example, access to bus station, yeah, or access to open data, yeah, for providing different solutions, etc., etc. Yeah, and it was idea of Amsterdam. First of all, we gave this idea, and which experience do you have in Amsterdam now?
Yeah, no, it's all open source knowledge, right? Knowledge sharing is caring, of course, and you've just I think you've described it perfectly. It's about access. It's about permissions, without having to go through any of these too many regulatory kinds of things. And so the living labs become a wonderful laboratory to get to the truth, get to the core value, to really kind of accelerate those ambitions, to make sure that those solutions can be scalable, replicable as quick as possible. But sometimes you need the cooperation, and it sounds like you and Kiev are doing wonderful work giving access to those infrastructural kinds of amenities like bus stops and things like that normally the public doesn't have. The public can do lots of things from their front door or their rooftop or their back garden, but at some point you really need to get the truth when you really push those things out into the realities that you can't control. The everyday life of the city is unpredictable, and that's where you learn the most. So if you can reduce that time between idea to actual location, you are doing everybody a huge favor, and that's great that you guys are doing that. We're doing that every day here, but now we're pushing it to the next level about what's okay and what's not okay in terms of technology. What technologies are helping us and which technologies are harming us. And so, as you say, your Living Labs as a platform, and it's absolutely true that we're exploring the Living Labs as an interface to get the feedback from the public, to really understand, help them understand what's in it for them ultimately. How do these technologies make their life better? How do these technologies improve the city, improve the spaces or the services? But the only way to do that is in a real world environment.
Okay, and of course, Amsterdam and Kyiv city, big cities, large cities. And what do you think about small cities? How is it possible to build a living lab in small cities, and what needed for that?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think small cities share the same problems, whether it's congestion or whether it's environmental issues. The smaller cities may not have the financial resources, but they certainly have less bureaucracies, right? So the hierarchies aren't as severe as they are in the bigger cities. So in fact, the smaller cities can actually accelerate that kind of innovation process, accelerate that kind of experimentation stuff, so long as there's an open mind from the communities, and that you're communicating with those communities, that you are conducting some research, you're doing some tests to help them ultimately. So the smaller cities, as long as they have an open mind and they transition from trying to make the project perfect before deploying it, that they use the city, their own little small city, as that kind of sandbox to play and to understand where the value really is. And I think that if you do this in a kind of in a startup and a kind of lean methodology, you could everybody's going to learn so much in just a short amount of time, even without much budgets.
How do you make urban tech responsible?
Yeah, I mean, that's your colleague Katrina was asking me that this morning. She's like, what does that mean? And I started to realize, hang on a second, maybe not everybody understands what that means. So thank you for asking this question. For me, it's a really simple one. If it's citizen-centric, meaning it's you're improving the lives or the experiences for the citizens, the residents, your neighbors, the community around you, and it's also privacy by design, so that you're not going to be, all the data isn't just landing in some sort of black box that Google is harvesting right now and profiting from, or China, who is punishing you for. We're trying to find that middle ground. So responsible urban technologies are the technologies that have the citizen in mind, but also privacy by design.
And what is the difference between citizen versus privacy by design?
That's a good one. I think the privacy by design, in one hand, it's a legal kind of matter. So you're adhering to the regulatory data protections. There's data processing agreements that you have with the city, or with myself. I have got lots of data processing agreements with the city. Citizen by design means that so privacy, but so it's not just the digital rights that we're trying to protect and adhere to, but it's a human right that we need to be conscious of, because right now online it's a mess. Everybody is just given up. Everything is fake. You can't trust anything, and it's just chaos. And we want to prevent that from happening in public spaces, obviously. Citizens by design is more about the kind of the grassroots bottom-up approaches to making future cities. It's about working with stakeholders, working with interest groups, working with citizens to make sure that this thing is really representing their needs and solving their problems, and not just for profit.
I would like back again to the Living Labs, and can you please explain why smart city prototypes is important?
Yeah, prototyping is again the 21st century of city planning, city building. So, from my definition, so in the old days, architects and urban planners used to come up with a 20-year plan, 30-year plan, and then everybody would just go towards that plan. But things are changing so fast that you need to prototype all the time. I started my talk just a half hour ago with this reality check, this paradigm shift of Corona. Corona has profoundly changed our cities much faster than any authorities could have anticipated. So when you're prototyping stuff, you reduce that time to hours or days, or maybe just a couple of weeks, versus designing the super system that may solve everything and only to find out no one's using it. So when you're prototyping, you're doing things in iterations and doing it collectively with the people to really understand what the value of what that solution is, whether it's a product or service, or whether it's a technology, if it's infrastructure, whatever it is. You're constantly demonstrating that there's a business case, there's technical viability, and there's usability, and you can scale those things. So the prototyping is really, really key. And you combine that with a living lab, wow, that's where the magic can happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you. And from your opinion, what are the top 3 lessons urbanists should learn with regard to the new normal?
Yeah, I think, well, the new normal is spatial. I think we've learned the 1.5 meters here in Amsterdam, six feet in Americas. That's the new metric for city planning for the next pandemic. The distances that we're moving, one reality check is that if everybody's working from home now and productivity levels for that companies or businesses remain the same or go up, why do we need all these office parks? Why do we need all these office buildings? If we can get rid of and decongest the roadways, clean the air, all of it. So good and bad. The Corona has really kind of forced agendas that may or may not have succeeded at this rate or this pace. And so some of the advices to urban planners is to be much more adaptive, to be much more experimental, to be much more radical in their thinking, because the realities are changing things faster than the experts think they know. So like I said, Uber and Airbnb changed our cities, but not as fast as COVID did.
How is the role of public and private sector in selecting and implementing different urban and smart city solutions?
Yeah, that's an important question, because I'm a huge believer in the public-private relationships. In other words, the startups working with the cities to solve the city's most urgent urban problems. A lot of corporations right now are still for profit. They have these huge companies, lots of overhead, and they're charging cities lots of money for stuff that may or may not work. And I think cities would be better off talking to the startups to prove stuff works at a quicker and a more affordable way before giving those multi-million-dollar taxpayer assignments to the Googles, Oracles, Microsoft, Cisco's that I think are only for profit. And so when you have this kind of local interest in mind as a local startup, you can better represent the technologies that you're deploying in the city.
Yeah, and as the finish of our discussion, which key recommendation can you give to successfully implement of urban technologies, urban projects in the cities, and especially in Ukrainian cities?
Those that know me, I'm the American cowboy, so I'm always shooting first and asking questions later. And my reference is always go guerrilla, just go guerrilla. So in other words, you're always operating by apologies, never permission. You'll never get permission, but if you do something, You can always apologize for doing it, but you've already demonstrated something works, or something's valuable, or something's interesting, or something, you know. So that's my, just go guerrilla, just do it. Don't ask for permission and then say, oops, I'm sorry, but look how much we've learned in the meantime. Because if you ask permission, you'll, I think everybody knows, oh, that's different. We don't do it that way. That's not how we do things here. So you'll never get the permission. So just do it.
Okay, thank you. Tom, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for participation in our Short Talks event. And of course, I'm sure that pandemic will finish, and I invite you to Kyiv, to Ukraine, and we'll be happy to see you in our city and great country. Thank you very much for the
Yes,
participation.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Yuri.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.